welcome to the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team. I'm Yetta Dekker, and today I'm here with Linda Fouzie. Welcome, Linda.
Hi, Yetta.
And Linda is one of the Dekker Team members, and so you're going to get to see lots of her when you call us, and when you come out and look at property with us, you're going to get to meet Linda. So we decided today would be an awesome day just to talk about the client's experience in relation to buying a home. And Linda has lots of expertise there, so I'm just going to ask her some questions. She's going to enlighten you, and I'll tell you things that I think you need to know too, if that's all right. So thanks for joining us today. And so let's talk about, Linda, the very first steps. If you're a buyer and you're thinking about buying a home, where do you start? When do you start? Is it too early to start 3 years out? Is it too early to start 6 months out? When do you start the process, and what is the first step?
I think you know when you're ready, when you want to make that first step. And the most important thing is having a great team. So buying or selling real estate is really a team sport. You need the right players in place, the realtor, a mortgage broker, and a lawyer. So that would be the first thing.
Okay. And then you also, I would think at some point you want a team where you've got a building inspector, maybe a septic inspector, maybe a foundation expert, maybe an environmental inspector, maybe a well inspector.
Yes, that all comes into play later on.
Yes. At some point.
Yes.
So the initial team really is just the realtor, so you want to choose the right one. So if you want to choose us, you give us a call at 613-860-4663. And how we do it, because we are a team now, it allows us to match you with really the best team member to help you. So somebody that has the most experience in a given area. We've got over 60 years experience on the Dekker team in the realtor capacity. And then also we've got years and years of client service experience, care experience on behalf of the support team at the Dekker team. And so they've got, I guess, probably over 20 years of experience combined as well there, taking care. Care is really the key point,
Definitely.
right? So that's part of your team as well. It's not just an individual realtor, it's a whole team of realtors and support coming alongside you to help you. So the first step is making a decision to buy a house, I guess.
Definitely.
Right.
And once you select your realtor, we'll get to know you and what your plan is for the next few years. The most important thing too is a budget. What can you afford? So what we'll do is, after we get to know you a bit, we'll ask you to sit down with a financial advisor, and if you choose Lynn Fraser, that would be an excellent
More than
choice.
enough, right?
More than enough,
Right.
Because you'll take the time to see what your comfort level is for your purchase and ensure that you're pre-qualified, not pre-approved, but actually pre-qualified, so that when we go into a situation, we know whether or not you're going to be able to purchase that house. So there's no point in, searching for a home, finding one, falling in love with it, and then realizing that it's just beyond your reach.
Yeah, that would be no fun at all. And we don't want you to do that. So in fact, sometimes the first step can be, even before you're ready to get to the point of actually starting to look at homes, might be to attend a workshop. We have buyer workshops that we host every month, and the buyer workshop, which is really geared to a first, second, even a third time buyer, because if you're only buying a home every 7 to 10 to even 15 years, the whole process has changed a fair bit in that length of time, and how much of it do you remember anyway? It's not what you do every day. So the buyer workshop is an awesome opportunity, and they are hosted the third Thursday of every month at our Ontario's main office, and all you have to do is RSVP. So again, all you do is you email us at info@dekkerteam.com to say you want to come. So that's info@dekkerteam.com, double K, no C's. Or again, give us a call at our phone number, 613-860-4663, and we'll get you registered into that workshop. So there's really no time too early to attend that. And in fact, we encourage people to attend it more than once. If you're sort of thinking, well, maybe I can do it now, maybe I want to use some RSP contributions, maybe I want to add something to that, I'm a first-time buyer, so maybe I want to fit that into the plan, you really want to know that a year, 2 years out, so you can maximize your financial benefits around that. So attend those, they're there for you, and we love you to come and bring your friends, your family, anybody you know that is even remotely thinking that it's home ownership is down the road for them. And like I say, attending twice is, even 3 times we'll let you come. You just decide and we'll let you in. As long as you RSVP. Because what we don't want you to do is be disappointed, right? That there isn't enough space, or that we've decided not to have it that month, which doesn't actually happen. The only month we tend not to have one on my request is December. However, sometimes they host them anyway because the demand is so high. So you certainly let us know if you want to attend that. And then really often, I will often encourage you to even get your financing in place before you meet us. It can be done simultaneously. It can be done before. It can be done after that initial consultation. Because when we sit down to do that consultation that Linda's referring to, when you're ready to get going and actually purchase a home, and that consultation's one-on-one, right? It usually takes an hour, plus or minus, depending on which realtor's sitting down with you, and depending on how many stories you have to tell and how many stories they have that they believe you need to hear. So about an hour to sit down and really fine-tune what you're looking for, right? And I love your point, Linda, that if we don't know how much we can spend, we may find you a perfect house, and it becomes not the perfect house because it's the wrong price.
It's true. And then it's even more disappointing because every home we see after that, you're comparing it to that home that you can't afford. And when you start higher and then have to move down, bring your expectations down a bit, that's a bit of a difficult adjustment.
It's more than a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. And then I think the other thing that happens is, even if it was a house that got away on you, let's say you didn't respond quickly enough, that happens sometimes too, and near the beginning of the process, it can be that you find the perfect home, and yet you're not sure it's the perfect home because you've only seen one house. So you're kind of going, is it, isn't it, should I, shouldn't I? And the challenge is, more often than not, when we let go of that one, what ends up happening is we put on what's called rose-colored glasses. And that house gets to be better than it ever really was. And now we're not only comparing it to the one that got away or the one that was too expensive, the same thing happens, you're comparing it to something that is even better in your mind's eye than in reality. And that's a terrible thing.
It's true.
To have happen. So we don't want that to happen. So that's part of the reason also that it can be a good idea to get all the finances out of the way, get that handled so that when we go out and look at a home, we can actually know we can buy it.
It's true. And just in terms of pre-qualification, it's great to know where you stand if you're in a multiple offer situation.
Huge. Because the multiple offer situation is, although it's not as common today as it was, say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it still happens. And I bought my home not that long ago in this market, and the home had been on the market for a very long time. Brought the offer in, the agent was trying to reach me, and I thought he was just trying to reach me for feedback. So I must admit I ignored his call, thinking I had other things to do. So I carried on my day and told Ken to present the offer on my behalf, or our behalf, which was fine. And the reason he'd been trying to reach me was to tell me that even though this home had been on the market for years, we were now in a multiple offer situation. And there we were. And that's why he was trying to reach me. He could have given me more information, Anyway.
So always answer your realtor's call.
Exactly. there's the real answer there. Yeah, answer the call. Anyway, because you never know what it's about. And we actually have an amazing process now that has been put into place in the real estate field to increase the professionalism and the certainty that when you're being told there is in fact a second offer, because probably the comment I get more often than not, and I'm sure you do too from clients, is that, is there really a second offer? Like, is that really true? And we then have to verify based on knowing the other agent and their reputation. And the vast majority of realtors are very honest, very integrous, know what they're doing, and are not going to tell you there's an offer. However, what's just changing in the real estate industry in our country is that we must now record it in a different way and have to do way more paperwork, to the point that I'm not even sure we're going to figure out how to do all that extra paperwork. However, it's going to guarantee that there is another offer, because there now has to be proof basically provided that that offer has in fact materialized and is in writing and is not a verbal offer. So not just I'm getting one, it's I have one, and that information always has to be disclosed. No details of the offer can ever be disclosed, so just so that there's no mystic feeling around this whole multiple offer thing. It's a very confidential process, other than how many we have, right? So we're jumping ahead, but that's what I like to do. You guys all know that. I go on bunny trails, or actually piggy trails, all the time. So here's another one. So first step is to get some good education, get solid information, maybe just do some Googling on the website to confirm the information. Part of the first step I would encourage is, as you're gathering your information, once you've selected your realtor, then you want to rely on them or the real estate team that you've chosen. So we'll, at this point, assume the Dekker team, that you're not gathering too much outside, because everybody's got a story. And the story sometimes can do you more harm than good. So hiring somebody that you trust, that you believe is going to give you the honest answer, that's not just going to get you into a house, but it's going to help you get the right house at the right price, with the right terms, with the right everything. That's what you're looking for. And once you have that, you actually want to gather good, solid information around the process, and then probably turn your ears off, push the other information out a little bit so that you're not confused, because that happens a lot.
It's true, but I think the beauty of when people come to the Dekker team, it's based on referrals, because the business, yes, it is truly based on a lot of referrals, and so they come with that level of expectation that there will be that the trust and confidence in being provided efficient and professional service, and that's key, starting with the basis of trust.
Well, it is. Without it, we're schnookered. So after we've decided who's going to help us, and we've got some good, solid information, and we know what we can afford, that's kind of all part of the first step leading into the second step. So what's next?
Location. Sometimes people have a definite idea of where they want to live, where they want to purchase, and that's either because of a traveling distance to work, or their child's school catchment area, or just their lifestyle, if they want to be downtown in the market, or if they want to be in the suburbs. So some people have that definite idea, and we can just jump right into to the search at that point. Other people just aren't quite certain. They come and they need a bit more time and perhaps guidance just to discuss what the possibilities may be. If I can just give a personal example. Just within the last month, actually, I had a woman call, and she said, you know what, this summer I'd like to buy a home and an investment property. And I said, great.
We can do that. Yeah, we know how to do that.
Yeah. And but upon taking more time and discussing things a bit more, she shared what her situation was, and it was that she was a recent widow, and also she had a mother who had a heart condition who was in another city. So that sort of reframed things for me, and so we discussed whether this was actually the right time for her to be thinking of an investment property. Perhaps she needed just to settle into this new city. She wasn't familiar with Ottawa, so maybe it was just time for her personally to settle down in a condominium, a low maintenance, a beautiful condominium in Barrhaven, which we found. And then the investment part of it, we were going to hold off on, so we're going to revisit that next year. So it's just the timing of things. You know, sometimes people have an idea of what they want, but not exactly. So the more we discuss, the more we have clear communication, the more we share and get to know each other, I can better service those needs. Right.
Then you can actually give them an insight that they maybe couldn't see themselves, right? So that's part of what we do too, because it's very, very much a consultative approach.
Yes.
It's not just, hey, you want to buy a house? That's great. Let's get in the car and let's go look. It's, let's understand what you're looking for. And then let's uncover it and maybe dig a little deeper. Sometimes the questions we ask are actually quite thought-provoking and a little unfamiliar and maybe even uncomfortable sometimes, because it's not the depth of thinking that people have maybe put into it or had somebody else engage with them in.
But what the beautiful thing about that is we just establish such great relationships with our clients. So I truly appreciate the fact that the open exchange.
Well, and it helps you make a better decision.
Yes.
And that's ultimately what it's about. It's helping you make the best decision possible. So if it takes a little bit of discomfort to get there, we're okay with that, and we're assuming that you are too. And our clients that keep coming back to us are okay with it because they keep coming back, even if we created some discomfort.
But there are people too who just have a definite idea of what they want, and we just go with that too.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. We don't have to change your mind.
No.
We just got to make sure that your mind is set.
Yes.
And then we can go with that. And the great news around location, because our city is so vast, because it's really a very large geographic city, for under 1 million people, the geographic parameters are really big. And so everyone on the Dekker team has actually worked and or lived in just about every community in and around Ottawa, from the river at Quebec side, because we can't unfortunately cross the river. And yet we have some great realtors that we can introduce to you on the other side of the river. And we do, and we have lots of clients that see us as their realtor, and yet we've never had been in a position to help them directly because they chose to live on the Quebec side, which is totally cool. And we introduce them to a realtor there, and yet they still perceive themselves as our client, which is really cool.
Awesome.
Right? And so if you're not even sure where you want to be, a big piece of the location conversation can be what it is you're looking for, both in a house and in the amenities and in the type of schooling or in the types of churches or whatever the whole picture is. And then because the Dekker Team members actually know the entire city, we're not pigeonholing you into our geographic location that we know. We're actually able to hear the big picture and go, oh, that sounds like you're going to get that in Castleman. Or that sounds like, oh, that's an Arnprior conversation. Or that's a downtown conversation. Or that's a Orleans. Or that's a Barhaven. Or that's an Osgood. Or a Greeley. Or a Manotick. Or it could be anywhere. It could be Hittenburg. It could be Westboro. So Sandy Hill, just start hearing what you're saying and then understand where that type of property is available given the things that you want attached to it. And that's kind of a neat thing. A lot of times people say, well, aren't I better to deal with a realtor that knows intimately a community? Well, we've been at the industry so long that we know all the communities, at least to some depth. And if we need to know specifically what the school catchment area is and what the parameters are, that can be found on the internet.
Easily.
And so there's a lot of that detailed information that we may not know because we know all of it, that is so easy to obtain. So you actually gain so much by having a team that actually gets the big picture rather than just a microscopic downtown condo picture, for argument's sake, or whatever the thing is. So after we get location handled, now what we're going to do is make sure that we are all on the same page again, right?
Oh,
we just keep doing that. So if you're just joining us on the Inside Track on real estate right now, we're at about halfway. So we're going to ask you, if you've missed the first half, that you go back and listen to. We're talking about buyers, first steps, second steps, what's expected, how to choose a location, pricing, all of that sort of stuff. So if you want, and how to attend a workshop even that will give you great detailed information. And those workshops are awesome because there's a lawyer on site, there's a mortgage specialist on site, a realtor on site, at least 3 professionals there to answer your questions and really guide you well in the process.
And it's a really comfortable environment too, so the exchange of information is very easy. Don't be embarrassed at all. Ask all the questions you want and they'll be answered in a very friendly way.
Yeah, which is great.
It is.
And sometimes the question you're reluctant to ask, somebody else asks it because you're in a small group setting, and that can be really awesome as well. So now we're just going to talk about, after we understand you, after we get everything laid out, we're looking at homes, now we find the right house. Have I missed any important steps up to then?
I think you've got it.
Okay, good. So now we're going to find the right home. Now what do I expect?
Then you want to place an offer. So we decide what is the comfort level for you, what we think is the appropriate price to offer based on the comparables, and we have access to all of the solds in the neighborhood and what we feel where the market is going, so we can adjust the offer price. And we present the offer and see what happens. Then the fun begins. Then it's the negotiations, and that's where we really...
That's where we shine, isn't it? We shine there significantly. It's actually most of ours favorite part. So, getting to know you is probably the favorite part, and then the negotiations probably for a lot of us. Just really, there's something exciting about getting to know somebody, caring about them, and now being in a position to go and represent their interest. And that's really what the negotiation process is about, right? Is representing your interest and making sure that we're doing things that serve you. And because now for the last 20 years, we've had the opportunity in the real estate industry to actually represent the interest of a buyer, because until 1995, that was not an option, right? Every realtor only worked for the seller, even if they worked alongside the buyer, whereas now the buyer gets to choose. You can choose whether you want a realtor that just works alongside you and doesn't represent your interest, or a realtor that actually represents your interest. We do both types of service for clients, and I think where you generally win the most is where we're actually representing your interest, because there's so many additional obligations that we have in taking amazing care of you and making sure that you're making phenomenal decisions. Whereas if you're simply a customer, not a client, we don't actually have to ensure, we're actually obligated not to ensure that we make sure you make great decisions, because we're obligated by the legal responsibility we have to the seller. So that's something that you learn about at the workshop as well as we readdress that at our consultations, because it's so important to understand how your representation is happening.
Yes,
right?
And if you're unclear, just ask, am I a customer, am I a client? What happens in a multiple representation situation? So
right,
just
so
clarity.
How do you mediate in that scenario? What does that all look like? And we are quite experienced and skilled at navigating all of those, right? And so, because when we're representing you, we're actually going to be coaching you and guiding you what to include. And so part of the offer process is our input into what does it need to look like? Why do we need to word it that way? I know we just worked on one yesterday, and it was how do we phrase a clause where we don't want to fill the oil tank because we're going to take out the furnace right away, so we don't want to pay for that on adjustments. So how do we structure that? Well, that was something the realtor brought to the attention, not the client. They hadn't thought about the fact that, hey, although I know things are going to be adjusted, that I don't want to pay the extra hundreds of dollars for the extra oil that I don't want to have to get rid of. So little things like that, and also much bigger, more important things. So once we get the offer negotiated, if there's multiples, we're going to educate you as that process is happening. So multiple offers or multiple representation. Two totally different things, and sometimes, in fact, they show up in the same package. So that's fun to navigate. So we know how to navigate that. We love doing that for you. So once we get the offer in, then begins the negotiation process until we come to an agreement. And an agreement is on the terms, as well as the conditions, as well as the closing dates, as well as the deposit amounts, as well as the actual purchase price. There's so many things to think about.
It's true.
Right?
And we'll guide you through all of that. So don't be concerned that way. We'll take it step by step and make sure that you're comfortable with what the conditions are of the offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our goal for you guys, is to make sure that you are always in control to the point that you can be in a real estate transaction. And you understand what's happening every step of the way. So now we get the offer negotiated, right? We have a successful negotiation, which is wonderful. And then what's next?
We want to fulfill our conditions, and very often the inspections are part of it. Unless you're in a really heated situation where you waive conditions and you're just going for the for the purchase, which doesn't really happen that often.
No, I've done it. I do it to myself usually. However, I figure you get more negotiating strength if you do that. It doesn't always actually work. However, that's the goal. So we're going to begin the inspection process, the finalizing the financing approvals,
but
right?
because you've already been pre-qualified,
right?
Then you're probably that's not a major concern as perhaps a building inspection. And there are different types of inspections, actually, not only the building inspection. If you have a wood burning fireplace, you might be interested in getting a wet certification to make sure that is fine. There's also environmental inspection. Some people don't realize there could be issues. We had one situation where a building had what looked like closed off connecting pipes to an oil tank, but there was no oil tank in the building, and they weren't sure if there was a buried oil tank outside. So the purchaser had to decide whether or not they wanted to pay for the cost of an environmental site assessment. She decided she wanted to proceed. I think it was less than $2,000, between $1,500 and $2,000.
For just a phase one.
Just for phase one. And they decided that there actually was concern that there might be contaminated soil. So they went to the phase two, took the core samples, and realized that no, it was clean. So we were able to proceed. But even in that situation where we had to incur extra expenses that weren't anticipated, it was great because having a realtor on board, you know, you can negotiate those costs as well because they're unexpected and unseen things that came up in the process. So
and then often we'll go back and have a conversation with the seller, right?
So
the inspection may create all kinds of next steps. And then we have our celebration where we actually fulfill all the conditions, the appraisal gets completed, all those things happen. We sign our fulfillments or our waivers or our amendments as we need, and then we're just waiting for that happy day when we get the house, right?
Well, you'll be visiting your lawyer before a couple of days before your lawyer.
That's true. We got to see
all
them too.
those details taken care of.
Okay.
And and then after the closing, it's great. We'll touch base again, make sure that we stay connected because, as we said at the beginning, referrals really are the basis of a strong business. We we really appreciate a kind word that you spread to your family or friends about the Dekker Team.
Yeah, and because if we enjoyed you, you probably enjoyed us, and you'll want to help your friends make sure they have a great experience, and that's really the point, right? So we love that. So we do client quarterly celebrations that we invite you to. There's the 3 workshops a month, sometimes 4. So all kinds of workshop opportunities to stay connected as well. And then we stay in touch because we like each other. So why wouldn't we stay in touch? It's kind of nice how it works. And so just before we wrap up this show, so we've been kind of brief on some of the aspects of it and yet a fair bit of detail here. So if you want more information, you know how to reach us, 613-860-4663, or email us. And now we want to just feature an amazing property, Linda, that we have for sale. It is in the city. And what's the address?
764 Dickens Avenue, so in Elmville Acres, so close to the hospitals there. The owners actually work at CHIO, and it's a great location. The schools there, shopping, and as I was saying, the traveling distance to the hospital is fantastic. It's a bungalow. It's a 3-bedroom on the upper level. There's +1 down in the lower level. Renovated bathrooms and renovated kitchen. Gorgeous gourmet kitchen. Yeah,
it's beautiful,
lovely.
Isn't
it?
It
It really is. A wood-burning fireplace. You should come out and visit. It's a lovely home. I think that for a family, if you're or
working at the hospital, anybody that works in that end of town. I mean,
it's a great location.
Yeah, it's awesome,
It is.
and it's a great little house.
It is.
Yeah,
beautiful.
So if you're interested in that one or any property actually that we have available, or whether it's listed with the Dekker Team or whether it is a property that is for sale anywhere, really, whether it is for sale privately, whether it is a new build, whether it is a lot, doesn't really matter. We've got the ability and the expertise to navigate and strategize with you as to how to move forward with those. So we thank you that you are getting informed and that you're choosing to let us at the Dekker Team do that with you, alongside you. If you have recommendations or suggestions, you know how to reach us. Thanks for joining us on the Inside Track, Linda. We thank you for just being here to let your pretty face be shown and your voice be shown to everybody so that we can make sure that you feel beautifully cared for when you come and join us at the Dekker Team. Thanks for today, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.